So one of the projects I have, I called it the Indian Grand Narrative, which means that after criticizing all this, we need to replace it with a positive sense of who we are. And in the Indian Grand Narrative, we have to talk about the history of Indian science and technology. We are doing there's a project here also in JNU. It's a large project. A lot of different kinds of scientific, technological things have to be brought in. The proper understanding of the historical accomplishments of Indian economy, manufacturing economy, because if you ask, many times I've been asked to speak in American schools. So I used to ask them why should Americans study? Americans were studying history, study India, and even in conferences like this, many school teachers sitting there, nobody would find any obvious reason. So I said, well, where was Columbus going when he ended up here? And then maybe they get an idea. They say, oh yeah, he was probably going for India. But they haven't thought through, why was he looking for India? What was so important? And the whole trade that Europe had with India and China was so important for Europe to get goods, because they did not make medicines, herbal medicines, and textiles and steel and all kinds of goods that came from India and China. It was very important for them. And the only route was, the main route was the land route. And the Ottoman Empire, which is Muslims from Turkey, they created this Ottoman Empire right in between. So it took all of Central Asia, Turkey, and that was under the Ottoman Empire. So there was no route between India, China on one side and Europe on the other side. And therefore the Europeans were starved of these Asian goods for a long time. And there was a huge attempt to find some sea route. And that is why Vasco da Gama goes one way around Africa, and Columbus goes the other way, thinking he'll reach India. This is like today's venture capitalists looking for some new breakthrough, game-changing discovery. So in those days, finding a new route that would get you these goods without having to go through the Ottomans would be a very big breakthrough. This is not taught. Even our people don't know this. Even our people don't know that when Vasco da Gama came, his ship was following, he hired a Gujarati sailor from Africa, from West Africa, to go around Africa to the other side. He followed a Gujarati sailor. So this is and when we talk about globalization of trade, we think that it's something new. But actually, the colonial era, the European colonial era, closed the trade which used to be open. There used to be Indian Ocean open trade. There were no customs, immigrations, people who were traveling around from Africa to India, South India, all the way to these Southeast Asian countries, up to China and back. The Indian Ocean trade was thriving, and the land route, the Silk Route, was also thriving. So there was a global economy. And this was closed because the colonization meant that each of the colonizers wanted to control markets, control their supplies, control their finished goods being sold somewhere, competing with each other, with other colonizers. And so the whole world trade got closed, and now it's being reopened. So it's not a globalization, it's re-globalization. That is what is a better term. But we don't learn all these things. So this is a very large amount of rewriting history. And then there is a problem on the other side, which is the tendency to exaggerate and chauvinism and say that everything we had, which is also incorrect. And that is a good way to lose credibility. If you aren't rigorous, if you don't subject your discoveries to due diligence and analysis and criticism by opponents, then you are also falling into the trap of fighting one exaggeration with another exaggeration, fighting one lies with another lies. And that's very wrong. So my foundation, we have started 20 volumes on history of Indian science and technology. And we made a decision not to do anything that we can't prove in a scientific way. So we've got 9 volumes out on things like metallurgy, textiles, water management, and so on. And every one of them is based on physical evidence. You can actually go someplace, look at some samples, and you can prove something scientifically. So, for example, we don't include things like Pushpak Viman or nuclear bombs in the Mahabharata. So I was asked yesterday, how can you yahan likha hai, wahan likha hai, nuclear bombs? So I told him that if a nuclear bomb exploded even 10,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago, there would still be radioactivity. And if you take a Geiger counter, which doesn't cost too much money, you'll be able to detect radioactivity today. So show me any place which has radioactivity, then I'll believe it. And if somebody could find such a thing, it would be quite big news by now. So I can't, as a scientist, as a trained scientist, I can't believe it. But I can believe so many other things, so many other great things in mathematics, in astronomy, in chemistry, in physics, in medicine, that are fantastic. We don't need to lie and exaggerate. Nor is it a good idea to think that decolonizing means we sort of go back to a Vedic perfect age. We can't go back, we have to go forward. For one thing, in the Vedic age, you did not have 1.2 billion people. Maybe you had 3 million, 4 million, 5 million. Even in British times, the whole of South Asia was 300 million. 1/4 of, if you consider South Asia today to be 1.5 billion, including Pakistan and Bangladesh, it was 1/5 of that, even British era. So probably time of Mughals was like 100 million. So if you keep going back, the Vedic era was probably less than 5 million. So when you have gone from 5 million to 1.5 billion, that's what, 50 times or something like that increase. Deforestation, it was full of forests. The whole supply of raw material and agriculture and food was huge for a very small population. So certain lifestyle was good. But now you cannot have that lifestyle. You need very high density use of land, natural resources, and people want a different lifestyle. They want things today that people those times didn't want. So you cannot have the same things and have a viable society. So we have to also be realistic that decolonization is not going back. Decolonization means that we use our parameters, our way of thinking, our values, our lifestyle, our ideas, our Sanskriti to go forward. And this is therefore a lot more complex than just getting rid of some colonizer. You have to now rebuild a society using your own terms.